For this video, I'm setting up the EMCOMM III portable antenna. It is Memorial Day weekend for this video. It's hot out here. It's probably 95 degrees. Now, unfortunately for me, this is not a forest. Matter of fact, I'm lucky that there are even any bushes here at all. We're real near a recreational area, the Little Sahara Sand Dunes. Look that up. Put a link in the description below. And my plan for this antenna setup is going to be on the back of the RV. I'm in kind of a little valley, a little gully here at camp, and I've got the juniper bushes that are kind of all around it. The juniper bushes are not going to have a lot of impact to my solar panels, which is a good thing, but they're not really high for putting up the end of the antenna. I'm using the EMCOMM III portable end-fed antenna, the one that's meant for RVs and camping. Now, I do get a lot of questions about how I'm setting something up and what I did to accomplish a certain thing, so I'm going to go step by step and I'm going to explain some of this stuff so that you'll know. This will help you out. So what we're using to get this antenna up in the air is the back of my camper, and I'm using the flagpole mounts like I described, my flagpole buddy mounts. And I'm taking my window washer pole that I acquired a few years back. Its full length is 43 feet, I think, fully extended. But I've taken some of the sections out for my camping trips because it's just too unmanageable for me when I'm going camping. So it's a friction mount. You push the lever, the thumb lever down, and that holds it down. It's supposed to hold it down, and you do your window washing. Well, after the first few trips that I took this pole on, this mast on, I discovered that it does not like the downward forces that are put on it when you're using guidelines. So what I've done is I've drilled holes up near the top of where each fitting goes, like its maximum amount, where it's going to have enough strength to be inserted, but yet there's enough there to hold the mast. I've drilled holes through it, and I use these D-ring clips. I slip them through, and that holds the downward pressure, keeps them from sliding down during an activation. I may or may not, in this application, put up guy ropes, guy lines to hold the mast because it's only going to be 25 feet up in the air. If you're ever in doubt, always add guy lines, guy ropes to your antenna mast support. So what I've done on this mast at the top, whether you have to make something, drill a hole or whatever, I've secured some rope to the top and put a little D-ring carabiner clip, I guess this is called. And as a side benefit of having all these D-rings, they self-lock. They stay with the mast when it's in transport. So how I do this normally is I'll extend the mast all the way out to its fullest potential, and then I'll just finagle it up to the top. It's light enough that this works for me. And what I'm doing here is taking my end hook. I'm going to secure my pulley line to the top of this thing. And I've got one of these snatch hooks, I think they're called. And they have a little twist on them, so this thing can rotate as you're pulling your antenna up. And having a pulley at the top of your mast I think it's pretty important. This is going to be a medium grade one. I'll call this a medium size one. Working weight limit on this thing is like 500 pounds. I really don't see how this would hold 500 pounds. And it's light enough, it's going to keep the mast from blowing around. That's one of the considerations, I think, is when you put everything up, it needs to be lightweight, but it needs to be heavy duty enough. I guarantee you, when you put up an antenna, it's going to be stormy, it's going to be windy, and it'll test your configuration. And that's what makes you good at this. Every time you do it, you learn something new, and you get that much better. And what I'm going to do in this first process before we put the mast up is I'm going to run the main hoisting line up through the mast and have it dangling there. So when I put the mast up, it's got my line to raise the antenna up built into it. And a way to get around it being tangled is you can kind of just spin the mast around a couple times before you raise it up in the air. Then the rope won't get carried away, get stuck in branches and trees while you're putting it up. All right, what you just see here is you take the two ends, the even ends of your pulley rope, and tie a simple knot at the end of them so that as you're putting the mast up, one end doesn't get carried away and pull itself out of the pulley on top, and then you're back to doing it again. So there's a helpful tip. Give the mast a couple quick turns to keep the rope to it, and once the mast is in place, then you can spin the mast around and untangle that rope. And in case you're wondering, I am not the strongest guy in the world. Raising this up was not a big deal. So if you had any questions about that, this is a fiberglass pole, not carbon fiber. Okay, now it's time to put the mast up onto the pole. Now, you may have noticed that pulley that I put on the top and then a swivel snatch lock. And the reason for that is I've noticed on this antenna, it's so springy. There's so much memory into this wire As you're pulling it up into the air, it wants to coil around itself until you've gotten it all deployed. And I found that putting a pulley up there lets that spring tension get released. And that's been good. I'm going to take the balun and the center insulator, that's staying down at ground level, but that's going to be pulled away from the RV, and the other end is going to go north of the RV. And so that puts the middle of the 75-foot wire, I think it is, up about 25 feet. So it gives me 36 and a half feet on either direction. And the coax will be away from the RV. And we'll see if we get any kind of interference or interaction with the camper this way. If I had some feedback for the manufacturer on this antenna, and maybe I'm missing something, so you'll have to correct me in the comments down below and let me know what I might be missing here. But if you follow the instructions like I have, it clearly calls out for a couple of configurations, one of them being the inverted V and the other being the inverted L. And with those, you're supposed to split the long part of the 75 feet at a certain point, and there are no markings for that. So what I've done, I've got tired of having to guess where that was, and I took some colored duct tape, pink in nature, so I can see it when it's up in the air, because you can't see it when it's 25 feet away. Well, at least I can't. And so far, that's been working. It makes it easier to know when you're adjusting the antenna up so that you can get the correct readings or the correct performance that the manufacturers call for. And here's where this clasp comes in handy. Taking this from the rope and hooking it onto that thing. Now as I'm raising this thing up, the rope can spin freely and doesn't put a lot of tension on the wire as I'm pulling it up. So what I need to do is I need to get the end of the antenna up over that tree, and that's where the antenna will end. And I can't reach that, so I'm going to make it easy on myself and use my arborist weight. I'm going to take the paracord that I'm going to use to lift it over and just chuck it over the top, and that's how we're going to make that happen. All right, so the coax is attached to it, and I've pulled this up as high as I want to go without putting too much pressure on the mast that's over there. I think you can see that through the trees. So I don't want to pull it too far this way, because that's going to put a lot of heavy pressure away from the center of the mast. All right, so I've got this thing probably 8-9 feet in the air. It's not super high. Now the manual says, if I recall, it says to take the counterpoise, the little 25-foot counterpoise, and just go away from the center insulator. And that's what I've done here. I've just taken it and ran it down to the ground and off as far as it will go. This last leg, I need to go up over that tree. And I'm going to do that using the arborist weight again. And I'm going to toss it over from this side over to the trailer, trying to be careful not to hit anything. And I'll have this rope tied onto it. I'll attach the end of the antenna up, and I'll just pull it back over. I'm pretty happy with the setup the way it is so far. I may have to guy it. We'll have to see how that works. But right now, the antenna is split up the way I want. It's not directly over the camper. And it's time to go inside, I think, and let's see what it's like on the meter and hook up the radio.
Utah, Uniform Tango Alpha Hotel. Okay, Utah. And are you in Salt Lake City, over?
Negative. We're camping in the desert. Battery power, over.
Oh, okay, so you're out in the desert and battery power. Okay, mate, we got that. All right, well, Kevin, classify this as a contact. Classify this as a contact for your portable station, mate, over.
I really appreciate you helping me make this contact tonight. 7-3, and thank you very much. From Utah, K7 Sierra Whiskey.
Thank you for the contact, mate. Bye-bye.
So the first thing I did was got out the meter and I checked through the bands, and everything was like 2.0 or less. And that was good. There was nothing that was really down below 1.5. And that's totally fine. I have a tuner that I brought with me for this outing. Now I did bring an extra power source because I anticipated this kind of a problem. And I brought a 100-watt solar panel I got from Lion Energy. That's not a sponsored thing. I actually found it at a Seconds outlet. And I also picked up the no brand, no name MPPT charge controller and used that to charge up the battery. Now to connect to the battery, I'm using a couple of Anderson power pole connectors. One of them is fused and one line is not. The fused line is going to be going to the radio side, and the non-fused side goes out to the solar panels. So I took ring terminals and I connected them to the battery side and locked those down to my clamps that go onto the battery. These are like marine clamps. I really love those. I got them for my Jeep originally, but I ordered some more and it works out great for an application like this. So you can leave the battery terminal side tight, loosen up the other side, and actually add a whole bunch of other components if you need to. So the solar panel has about another 15-foot extension cord on it, so I can drag that solar panel out from the bushes and leave the battery and the charge controller charged up in the shade. Now, because I'm only using a 100-watt solar panel, it's only going to be a 6-amp draw. And so the fuse side on the solar panel is going to be at the solar panel and not at the battery. But the radio side, I want that fused at the radio, but also at the battery, since I'll be drawing a lot more amperage if I'm pulling 200 watts. All right, so I tried to make a few different contacts. I got a guy in Italy, which was pretty good, using this EMCOMM III antenna. And I was running 150 watts inside the trailer using my external battery and the solar panel. Considering this is a compromised antenna, I think that's pretty far for here. The band conditions are really not so good today. I got a lot of static crashes and a high noise floor, so I'm hoping that the bands will get better as the sun goes down, or maybe over the next couple of days. So far, I'm happy with the antenna, the way I set this up in the inverted V configuration. All the band places that I'm going to go are a good match, and I'm happy with that. I can use my tuner to bring it down to match the radio if I want. If there's anything that I set up and I didn't explain what it was that I did or didn't describe the part or the process that I went through, let me know in the comments down below and I'll be sure to answer all those questions. Another good experience with the EMCOMM III antenna has paid off for me. I hope to try it a few more times. I'll do more testing and I'll show you guys videos on how that works, the different configurations that I've used for this antenna. Make sure you click that like button down below, and if you're new here, consider subscribing to get more videos like this. I'm off to some Jeeping and to some more ham radio antenna setup. 7-3. See you next time.